everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity, and I have an old Boomerocity friend for you this time around. If you followed Boomerocity from the beginning, you know that I first interviewed Mark Farner, co-founder of Grand Funk Railroad, quite a few years ago. At least in Boomerocity years, it's quite a few years ago, and we're in our 16th year of interviewing people. And it was a great interview then. And this being the fifth interview with Mark, it's a great interview this time. We have a lot of fun talking with each other. We go all over the map on subjects. The main purpose, of course, was to talk about this new album of Mark's called Closer to My Home. And yes, on this album, he does a re-recording of his classic Grand Funk hit, I'm Your Captain and Closer to My Home. Those two are almost always played together. And as you know, Mark, being a co-founder of Grand Funk Railroad, wrote, I think it's something like 98% of their songs. So one might argue he is Grand Funk Railroad, even though he's not with the band anymore. But this album is great. He tells the story behind it, and it's an interesting story. Let's just say it involves, it's a great radio disc jockey that we all know, Howard Stern, and some of Mark's friends, and how it all pointed to recording this album. It's fun. It's a fun story. So, as always, I ask that you hit like, and if you're not already a subscriber, would you go ahead and hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening or watching this on? It helps us out, and it shouldn't be costing you anything because I'm not charging. So please just go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps us out, and it doesn't cost you a dime. And if you would, go ahead and share this with friends who you think might enjoy a fun interview with a classic rock and roll icon. That is Mark Farner. So without any further ado, here is the fifth of what I hope are still many more interviews to come with Mark Farner, co-founder of Grand Funk Railroad. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care. Hello, Brother Mark.
Brother Randy.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing, but I ain't mildewing.
I can always count on you for a witty comeback. It's one of the many things I love about you, my brother. And before I forget, our mutual DJ friend up at WOBE and WHTO, Steve Orchard, he told me to tell you hello, and
All right.
I look forward to you again sometime in the future as well. So
he's a good boy.
Yes, he and I met through I don't know if I ever told you the story if he did. We met through Rob Parisi, the guitarist and voice and songwriter for Wild Cherry. He introduced us many years ago. Rob called him the Jimmy the Greek of rock and roll. So because you know how Steve is with music data, where they charted and all that kind of stuff. And so Steve and I became fast friends. So anyway, we're ending the year much like we started, and that's us talking with each other. So I think it's been a good year. How has 2024 been for you?
Been great. I'm still working on my garden. We plant garlic every year, and I found out we had been planting it in late October. It likes the cold. Garlic likes the cold. And here in northern Michigan, we can give it plenty, you know. But
That's what I heard.
yeah, last year we didn't plant until the middle of November, and we had the best garlic crop ever. So we're just waiting till, tomorrow's the 15th. It's the opening day of deer season here. Uh, it's been open, since October for bows, but for lead poisoning, it's starts tomorrow.
Lead poisoning. That's a good way of putting it. So, do you do either one? Do you hunt or
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
I know a fellow Michigander, Ted Nugent is a big bow hunter. I think he goes up there and bows, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. Yeah, Ted and I are good friends, and he's a great shot. He's really into what he's doing, and the flight of the arrow is part of his psyche, dude.
Yeah, oh yeah. I get that. That's gosh, it's been a long time since I interviewed him, and even then it was by email. So I need to see if I can get him on the horn. And I don't know if it's so much interviewing him or just saying, "Hey Ted, how you doing?" And then 30 minutes later say, "All right, man, it's good talking to you," you know. So that's fine with me. So
I agree. Copy
well,
that.
man. So your 2024 has been good. But we were talking about a new live album back in January. So tell me about this album here, man. I love it.
Well, I appreciate that, Randy. It's been 2 years in the making, and
Hmm.
Mark Potter and I, back when we were doing Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp in New York City, Howard Stern called David Fishoff and asked him if I could come over and do his show and play "I'm Your Captain."
Huh.
He wanted to hear it. So and record it, of course. Uh, so I asked David, I said, does he want me to just come and do it acoustically, or does he want me to bring a band? I mean, how you want to do this? And David said, well, you should take the fantasy camp band, the fantasy band. And but we had Kip Winger on bass guitar,
Wow.
Sandy Gennaro from Joan Jett and the Blackhearts on drums. We had Teddy Zigzag from Guns N' Roses on keyboard. We had Bruce Kulick on acoustic guitar, Mark Slaughter on
Wow.
second, me on first, and we went over and we did the song. But proximity, I was maybe 2 feet away from Slaughter, maybe three at the most, but we're close. And he's singing right at me, and I took my headphones off because I wasn't feeling the band. I just quick reached up and grabbed them and dropped them off. Then I could hear everything. And when Slaughter started singing that middle part of, Am I in my cabin dreaming? It was like, dude, it was perfectly in pitch. It was clear. The tone was pure. And after it was over, I went to Slaughter. I said, dude, I knew you could scream, sing. I knew you could get up there in the stratosphere. But dude, you hit it right on the harmony, the pitch, everything was absolutely perfect. And we had been jamming a little bit in the green room before we even went in to do the show.
Hmm.
And one of the songs that I was jamming in there, Slaughter said, "What is that song?" And I said, "It's Oh Darling." He said, "Man, I want to be involved on that song." Well, I didn't even know. Neither one of us knew that this was going to happen. But he said, I'm going to send you some stuff and I want you to listen to the stuff I've been working on. I said, great. Yeah, I'd love to listen to see what you're up to. We're brothers and we have loved each other since we first met. We are supposed to be together, and at least hold each other up in prayer and in love. And that's our relationship. But when we started working on this album, it was because he had sent me that stuff and I listened to it and I commented to him. I called him. I didn't want to, just type it out or text it to him. I wanted him to know how I felt about what he sent me. So
Hmm.
I said, dude, these songs, they're great songs, and whoever did your production is outstanding. He says, I did the production. I said, you, dude, I didn't know you were a producer. He said, yeah, I've got it set up now. I've really got a grip on it. I said, yeah, you definitely do. And he said, dude, I want to produce you. And
Whoa.
that was, brother, that was music to my ears. That somebody as talented and somebody that I thought so much of and respect so much, it was just supposed to be. And I said, when do we start? When do we start? And he said, well, send me, some of the stuff that you got in the can that you're working on, and let's just begin. We'll start there, and assembled some music, and I went down to his studio after I'd sent him a few tracks and that I'd been working on, and it was just man, we plugged guitars in, started jamming and recording, and it was just magic to me. The dog laying there, happy, got a great Pyrenees. He's got a pair of them. Junior stays in the other room because Junior and Happy don't really get along together all that good. I think they're getting over that though. But you got a 160-pound dog there laying there, and you got a cat up on the console. Yeah, it's a
It's almost like a typical rock band. It's sometimes they get along, sometimes they don't, right? So
that's right, Randy. But yeah, it was wonderful to work together. But then we would send files, Dropbox. I would Dropbox him a file that I'd been working on, a slide guitar or a vocal or something. And that's kind of how we put it together because he's a touring musician, I'm a touring musician, and to get our schedules to coordinate, it took 2 years, but I'm glad it did because we got some things after sitting and listening for 2 years to things. You say, oh, there's this one little part in there that's kind of bothering me. Let's change that to this, you know, and that was good that it took that 2 years, and also that I got to hang out with him more than I
mhm.
ever had previously. So it's there in the grooves, and so far, people like what they're hearing.
Well, I can tell you as a fan, I'm not a musician. Like I've told you before, I barely do a mediocre air guitar, but I, but being a fan ever since I was in high school and remembering American Band and those 3D glasses that were part of the cover and all that kind of stuff. I am struck by your how remarkable your voice still is. And I interview a lot of people from back in the day, and I love them all dearly, but you can tell changes in the voice. They have to do all their hits in a different key now, and not all of them, but a lot of them. But I'm just stunned by how remarkable your voice still is. And your
Thank
guitar playing is better than it's ever been.
thank
And what's your secret to both of those things?
Exercised by reason of use. I'm singing all the time, Randy. I never turn the radio on in the truck or in my car ever. Never. I am always tuning into what's next. I've been working on a song the last couple of days, brother. It is inspiring me. Just playing it on my acoustic guitar. I get up in the morning and I'm sitting on the couch and I got this song going, and I try to keep it low enough to where it's not going to wake Lisa up.
You don't want to wake her up.
But that's how I've kept it up, and singing. I'm out in the barn, I'm singing. I'm out in the woods with the chainsaw, I'm singing. I use electric chainsaws. I don't use the smoke and all of the sound that you got up. You don't even have to wear ear, muffs with the electric chainsaw, and you can
Wow.
hear what's going on with that tree, the cracking and stuff. It's a whole lot better with an electric, a lot safer.
Mhm.
Uh, and I'm out singing. I'll hit a nice tone with the chainsaw. That's a good place to start.
Let's cut this one.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you should use a chainsaw in the studio. I mean, Eddie Van Halen used a drill for, one of his songs on a live album once. It's amazing what musicians can use
Yeah.
to to create music. It's that's well, what? What's different? I mean, you mentioned a lot about the drop boxing and shooting files back and forth and that type of thing, but what else is different about putting this album together than all the other ones you've ever worked on?
The it is the tuning standard that we used. I've been in the old school standard for 15, at least 15 years or more. Randy, we go out and play not in A440. You know, the tuning standard was set in 1953 by Rockefeller to A440. And prior to that, it was A432. It was 432 hertz. Well, they set it up to 440 hertz, and I couldn't tell you why. There's a lot of speculation as to why, but when I saw visually what the difference of 440 and 432, and it's so slight, it's barely audible, the difference. But I saw a guy put a 15-inch speaker in front of a kiddie pool on his deck, an enclosed speaker. The kiddie pool's 6 foot in diameter. You know, it's got this much
Mhm.
water in it. He's got a tone generator and an amplifier. He sets the tone generator up and it's set in 440 hertz, which is the American standard since 1953. And he plays A2, which is a low note, A2 at 125 decibels. And the threshold of pain, as far as SPLs, is 90 decibels. So 125 is pain. It's
You're
serious.
splitting wood there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's damage. And this kiddie pool is just waves and chop, and it's jumping up and down like it's got legs on it, man. I'm telling you, it was all frothy and foamy, and I'm going, wow, look what that note is doing to that pool. Then he shuts it off. He sets the tone generator. He tunes it to 432, plays the same scale, A2, but this time it's at 432, count backwards from 4. That is the old tuning standard. 125 decibels, brother Randy. It was flat as glass.
Wow.
Not a quiver. It was just loving it. It was laying there in that plastic going, yeah, come on, bring it to me. At 440, it was beating that water up. It was slapping that water. I liken that to our human bodies, which the makeup is something like 80, 90% water, our human body. And what that 440 does, and that's why I say it's beating us up, it's not as compatible as the old standard 432. And I like to think that because the love that is in my songs and my dedicating my life to God, who is love, and love is defined in one word, forgiveness. That's what love is, true forgiveness. I wanted to have my music in the key of love, in that scale. And 432 represents love to me. There's nothing slamming up against our bodies. This is coming into your ears. This is if you've got it turned up in a big room. Some friends of mine have some huge speakers and tube amplifiers and Kiterling over there. Oh my God, in Pennsylvania, and he's playing it and holding his phone up and say, "Look at this, man! Listen to this." I mean, it's great, uh, but it's not hurting them. It's not hitting them. It's not pushing on their water, and it's just going in there, and love is entering in the form of sound, brother. That's the big difference between everything else that I've ever done, or most everything. I've been in, like I said, been playing in 432 for the last 15 or better years.
This sounds to me like you could write a book about the whole. I mean, it's almost like a spiritual thing, and I do think there is a lot to that, especially
Yes.
with music. And we know the biblical stories of the origin of music and all that kind of uh,
Yeah.
uh, history. But I bet you could write you a good book on that people would love to pick up on, and you could influence music for years to come, long after we're both gone. With that, yeah, something to consider. I think it would be a
Yeah.
good one. I'd read it and I'd interview you about it. So,
Yeah.
were there were there any surprises in putting this album together?
Well, the surprises were, songs that like "Oh Darling." We were in the studio. I'm tuning up. I'm in Tennessee in Slaughter Studio, and I get it in tune. I'm in 4-3-2. I got my little Diodario headstock tuner on my guitar, and I'm and as I'm bringing it in, in 4-3-2, as the pitch, you're turning your tuner key, and as it's coming into tune, and the green light goes on, because if it's flat, it's yellow. If it's red,
Hmm.
it's sharp.
Sharp,
Green,
yeah.
you're there. So
Yeah.
as it's coming into the green, you hear this little on top of the note that you're hearing, you hear a whistle. I said, "Are you hearing that, Slaughter?" I said, "That's what convinced me to even, try 4-3-2, is when I tuned my acoustic guitar, it's very noticeable. It's apparent. It is there accompanying the actual string. There is the harmonic that is not there in 440. It is not there."
Hmm.
And as I'm, explaining why I'm in 4-3-2, and I'm talking to Slaughter, I start playing, and I hit these chords that we both remembered from when we were in the green room at Howard Stern show. And I went, "Ba-dum, ba, ba-dum, boom, bum, ba-da-da, ba, boom, bam, ba." He goes, "That's it." I said, "Yeah, man." He says, "We got to do that song, man. That's the song that." And I go, "Yeah, that's it." It was like, it was supposed to be. That was the
Yeah.
time for it. And he loves it as much as I do. It's got something, it's kind of like a Bad Time to Be in Love. It's not a rocker. You can dance to it, but it's got something to say. And
Yeah.
and being that it's in 4-3-2, it says it a little more definitely.
I see. I see. Which song on this album then would you point to as the calling card?
Well,
Especially the fans who have been following you since the get-go, the early days.
yeah, I think Anymore is it's the first song on side A. That's a song that emphasizes forgiveness.
Hmm.
As far as the sound and the rocking part of who I am, same game.
Hmm.
Same game, dude. Uh, that does it. And of course, we've got the single out, Real,
Hmm.
which talks about the New World Order and all this horse crap that they're trying to shove down our necks. And they're preparing the world for this this reset. That is horsey poo poo, brother. They're preparing the world for
Don't
digital.
don't hold don't hold back, Mark. Just say it like it is.
They're preparing the world for digital enslavement. That
Hmm.
is what that is. And guess what? I don't respect anybody who's trying to enslave me or put me in some kind of debt consciousness. I have been set free. Jesus set me free. Love set me free. And debt consciousness is a plague of mankind. So, we got to avoid. what they're trying to shove us into. And some of my friends, Randy, they go, the guy at the auto parts store, I work on my own stuff, and I go in and I'm getting a part, and this kid is saying, "Man, I can't wait to the reset, man. I can't wait." I said, "Do you actually know what you're talking about?" But you see, he's just so beat up by the system, and him and his wife are both working, and they got kids, and he just wants to get it over with and get on. He says, "Man, this inflation is killing us." Well, who ain't it killing?
Right.
Seriously, you got to. And I remember years ago, they said, "Man, at some point, you're going to have to take a wheelbarrow full of money into the store to buy a loaf of bread." You remember that, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
World
People,
War One, it was that way in Germany, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
with the
buddy.
fiat currency. Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's kind of how people are. Some people are that way, but I with this song, Real, the single, I hope it stirs people in the right direction and strengthens the resolve we have to remain free. And when nine, well, that was 1776. I know it's 1791 with the guns and what have you, but 1776, we told our forefathers, I say we, I'm still tied to them. You're still tied to them. I believe in why they told the king to stick it in his butt. And this is the powers that be. We talk about them all the time, but we don't really say who they are.
Hmm.
But the people running this world, it's not the governments. It is the banksters
Hmm.
who issue currency that they print out of thin air. They got nothing to back it. They're issuing currency to over like 190 countries. These same banksters, the families that own the Federal Reserve, the European central banks, and the Bank of England. And the Bank of England started in 1694 under the Crown, and the oligarchs, the families that's holding up the horsey poo poo. And it's been a scam job ever since.
Hmm.
And this whole thing, all of these countries' monies are falling. Oh yeah, the value of the currency keeps falling and plummeting, and you hear this all the time. It's because they're controlling all of them. They control the narrative because they own the media, not only here in the United States and Canada and Mexico, the connecting continents here, but all over the world, wherever they issue the currency, they control the media. So, when my friend says, "Man, how did this happen? The COVID, man, it broke out worldwide." Yeah, I said, "Yeah, the voice was worldwide that broke it out." But we can't allow those people, they're sick.
Hmm.
They are insane with the lust for power and blood. And they're telling us that the world is overpopulated and they want to, whittle it down to this manageable total. Manageable. You can manage any total with love. Tell people the truth. Uh, don't take advantage of folks. And real, the song "Real" is talking about it. I
Hmm.
see you got the front of my album all behind you, brother Randy.
Yep.
That's a nice surprise to see that. But I want to show people, Betty. This is my Betty Blue, my guitar. I named her
Hmm.
after my mom because my mom was the one got me into playing guitar, and she's in heaven waiting on me to get back. And but while I'm here, man, I'm gonna just keep putting out the love and keep putting out the music and do some live shows and entertain people. I love it.
Hmm. Well, we've touched on spirituality a bit, and I remember back in when was it, Mark? Late 70s, early 80s, you were doing some after you left GFR, you were doing some Christian music, and I know a lot of us, Steve and I especially, Steve Orchard and I, and others remember those days and remember how great that music was. I mean, when contemporary Christian music started really catching on, guys like me were lighting up, man. We're like, this is cool. And when we heard our rock and roll heroes, dipping their toes into it, that was just like an extra bonus. So, you
Right
know,
on.
to so I'm curious though. I know that industry has changed a lot. I don't listen as much to
Yeah.
Christian music as I used to. I feel like it's
Yeah.
it's all kind of the same in my book. But I'm
Mark,
just curious from your standpoint, you've got the songs on this album. Do you ever foresee a time where maybe those days might experience a revival of new music plus the appreciation of the old contemporary Christian music? You guys, the late Dan Peake, Dylan was into it for a while. We heard a lot of people getting into it. Do you think we'll see a resurgence of that?
well, I think when people get it figured out, brother, uh, because we call it God rock up here, okay? It,
Okay. I like that.
God rock, because God is love, and Jesus was the Son of love, and
Hmm.
He walked amongst us here on the earth. And the modern day churches have surrendered the authority of their ministries to those families I was mentioning earlier,
Hmm.
the ones who control the infernal revenue service, the, the ones who give them their 501c3 tax exempt status so that they can get up in front of the parishioners and say, make your tax deductible donation to, and
Hmm.
they give you the name of the church. Jesus threw the money changers out of the church. And he didn't just say, oh, run along, y'all. Now get off, go on. He was kicking ass and throwing them out.
Hmm.
That's what the Lord thinks of the money changers. Now, the modern day church has embraced the money changers to such a degree that they have compromised the truth for the satisfaction of the money they receive as a result of it.
Hmm.
This is this is why people don't go to church. I took a friend of mine who had just got out of prison to church, him and his wife, and they passed the plate. And I never got along with anybody passing the plate. In fact, I asked the pastor of this same church, why do you do that? It says in Second Corinthians where if somebody's compelling you to give, that don't give. You don't give if somebody's compelling you to give. And you don't give begrudgingly, but you give from a cheerful heart because God loves a cheerful giver. And he said, well, we tried that and we couldn't even pay the gas bill. And I said, well, don't that tell you something? But men, because they got an ego and they got pride, and I'm not counting myself out of that. I just understand it. And I think I have it more in focus because of what my line of work has been. And I've digested it to some degree to where I can speak to you, brother, this morning about why uh, what you were talking about, this resurgence, why it's not going to make any difference to those that really need to hear the gospel.
Hmm.
All these clubs have formed and they got great worship bands, the praise and worship bands. They get a salary, brother. They're paid to show up there. And I remember back when I was playing in church, I didn't charge anybody anything. I was happy to play that bass or that guitar to to give to join in and to give my portion up to God with all these brothers and sisters that were there, and we were singing. Now that was real good praise and worship, man. I'm talking
Mhm.
uh, spiritual, uplifting stuff. And there's words, there's songs that contain, the truth, but they're where they're getting played. Most people that I know that really need God, they don't need the what the church has turned into, because they just look at it as hypocrisy. And I played a prison up here. It's three sets of wires around it. I'm talking, uh, detention beyond. It's a big prison on an old Air Force base in the Upper Peninsula. 500 inmates. And when I played, the chaplain told me, he said, the first time you say Jesus, uh, they're going to get up and walk out. About half the crowd will get up and leave.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, so we go down, but I got my amplifier, got my PA system set up, and I'm hitting it, and I'm playing my guitar, and I'm singing. Don't Yeah, I mean, no false idols. It's part of one of my tracks that's in the back of
Mhm.
my book, from Grand Funk to Grace, and I'm singing to these guys, and the blacks are on one side with the Mexicans, and the whites are over here. It's kind of very, you know, segregated. Uh, and but I never look at that. I have always, because of how I was raised, I've always looked at my black brothers, my brown brothers, my red brothers, everybody's the same to me. I don't care about your color of your skin. We all got red blood and we were redeemed by the blood. And that blood of Jesus was red, brother. So, playing to these guys at the end, I never give an altar call. I think it's so much more personal than just to get up in front of everybody and, okay, yeah, count me in. It's more of a one-on-one, you and God. If you don't know God like that, then you're in the wrong place. You got to have that personal relationship. You got to believe, and you got to believe that the prayers that you are saying, you believe in those prayers, and that's how they happen. That's how they work. It's your belief in that. Jesus told the woman at the well, man, it's just like, it wasn't because you touched my garment that you got healed. It was your faith that healed you, woman. It's our
Mhm.
faith. So I'm here. I am at this prison. Uh, Not one person walked out. We gave away 3 cases of Bibles. I give the modern English New Testament. I don't put the Old Testament in there. I say you got to get to know Jesus, and then you can go back and find out what you got delivered from, because Jesus came to fulfill the law and the prophets, and he done it. It's done.
Mhm. Mhm.
you know. But in a case like that, here's all these guys that come down. I'm praying with some of them. My partner that I go in there, we're just embracing these guys, shaking hands. They loving it. They're just telling us, you know, and I tell them at that point, I said, if you can find a church that you can go to that isn't focused on the money, that doesn't pass the plate, I said, because that's really against the Bible.
Mhm.
Compelling somebody to give is not right. If it's the Lord compelling them and they are from within their heart, they are happy because they want to support the ministry they just heard this word from. Now you're talking, that is love, and that money can be used for good. But when you got to browbeat somebody or tell them, oh, you're robbing from the storehouse of God, that is such horse crap, dude. Oh my God.
Mhm.
Makes me sick. Uh, the music that we will hear in the future, uh, God rock, I hope that the church gets it, that these churches understand. I hope that there is a revelation and a revolution in the church where they cut off that tie that they've got to those who emanate the darkness. They
Mhm.
are they are the darkness. They are in charge of all of this crap that we've been going through, the COVID stuff, all of these people dying. You know, they say the world is overpopulated, trying to, depopulate the world, trying to reset the world. It's all coming from the same place. And these churches that have all these great praise and worship bands, it's just a club. In my opinion, I'm sorry, but and I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. It is my humble opinion, brother, that we're missing out on the greatest music and the greatest, revival that this country could ever experience, because we've kind of caved into and bowed down to those who issue the currency, and they're just men. They're just men. Surrendered the
Mhm.
ministry to men. The authority is not God's; it's these men. And get past that, we might go someplace.
Yep, I hear you. I hear you. Well, my friend, one more question for you. I know you got a lot going on, and I appreciate everything you just said. I'm what, one, two, three, fourth generation raised in the church, and
All right.
I've seen a lot of changes that I have not liked, and a lot of what you're saying resonates with me. And I've been tracking right with you, on a lot of it. A lot of it, I'm still learning,
Yeah,
but I read a book. In fact, I told Barry McGuire about this when I first launched Boomerocity. I don't know if you've read it. It was written by Frank Viola and George Berna, and it was called Pagan Christianity.
uh,
And it's a question, pagan Christianity question mark. And I think you might like it. Check it out. I won't say anything more. And then next time we talk, maybe I'll remember to ask you if you've read it and see what you thought. I think it would be something that it would you would track with there as well. But
all right.
all that said, what's on your radar for the rest of this year and 2025? Because I know we'll be talking next year, so we've got to do that. So
Well, the radar is my booking agency, TKO. Jim Lenz is my agent, and my manager, Abby Steinman, are at all of these conventions that they're having over the winter, where they have the Fair Buyers Convention, and then they have these different buyers conventions where they're selling entertainment. Uh, they're putting together a tour where some of the venues that we play at, not all, but some of the venues will have the portable Vietnam Veterans Monument, the wall, the portable wall
yeah, yeah.
that people can see. Because until I was in front of that wall, until I was right there in DC, it was just a word. It was a wall. I knew it had names on it, but when you are standing in front of that wall and you realize that all of these people gave their lives for the freedom that we live in, for what's left of it, uh, it does something to those people. And I know some of the Vietnam veterans, my friends, said, "Man, I could not go there. I could not do that," because they just hurt so bad. They're still hurting that bad, uh, that it just would bring pain to them. And
Mhm.
so those people, those brothers and sisters, need prayer, because at the rate of 20 a day, soldier suicide is high,
Mm. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
you
it
know.
is. Mm. A dear friend of mine had both legs blown off in Vietnam. And I was in his wedding when I was a little kid, and my sister was too, and he's still alive and happily, he was in the ministry, retired from it, but it's up in Kentucky. If I ever see that you two are going to be near each other, I'd love for you two to meet each other. His name is Randall Bogus, and super, super nice guy, and a hunter. He loves to hunt.
All
And
right.
so I think you guys would have a lot in common. But hey, I wanted to ask you, you referenced your book, and I'd forgotten totally about it. Do you still have, are you selling copies of it still, or is it out of
No,
print?
it's out of print, and I think, Lisa, my wife, she's got that little stash thing going on, album. I don't know what she's got, but I know she's got one for each one of our children, and
Hmm.
you know,
Well, if I find a copy, I want to get it and I want to send it to you to sign. I have a collection of signed books, and I don't, if I have an extra, I might give them away, but I don't ever sell because I just feel, if you can see my office here, I got signed albums all over, but I'm going to track down a copy of that book, and if and when I do, I want to send it up to you and love to have you sign it for my, just for my enjoyment, and
yeah,
uh,
I'm glad to do that for you, brother
I
Randy.
appreciate that. So, well, listen, my friend, it's always a joy and a pleasure and a hoot to talk with you. And I'm sure this album will do extremely well for you. And I look forward to talking with you next year.
All
And
right,
if in the meantime, if you haven't heard from me and you got something new going on, give me a shout. We'll put one of these together, and I'll do my part to get the word out.
all right. Thank you, brother Patterson. I appreciate it
All
so
all
much.
right. Thank you, Brother Mark, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye for now.
Bye bye.